My child, pause for just a heartbeat, because what is unfolding around you is quieter than thunder yet stronger than anything spoken aloud. There is a reason these words reached you at this exact moment. Not because chance arranged it, but because your heart has finally become still enough to notice what has been changing beyond your sight. Don't skip, there is a gentle turning point hidden inside this message, and it may explain feelings you could never quite put into words. Someone connected to your journey has just experienced an emotion they never believed would arrive so peacefully. They are not celebrating a grand event. They are responding to something far more meaningful. They are responding to the change that quietly began within you. For longer than you realized, every step you took was carrying a silent echo into another life. You thought your smallest choices disappeared unnoticed. You assumed your quiet moments belonged only to you. Yet every time you chose patience instead of rushing, every time you released a burden instead of holding it tighter, every time you allowed hope to breathe instead of giving frustration the final word, those unseen moments traveled farther than you imagined. They reached a heart that had almost forgotten what genuine peace felt like. That is why your soulmate's heart feels unexpectedly light today. Not because everything around them suddenly became perfect, but because something inside them recognized a familiar warmth returning. Strange, isn't it? Sometimes the greatest conversations happen without voices. Sometimes two journeys begin healing long before two people ever stand in the same place. Think about the last few days. Haven't there been tiny moments that seemed ordinary at first? A thought you couldn't explain. A memory that returned without invitation. A feeling that encouraged you to keep moving instead of looking back. Those moments were not empty. They were preparing space for something new. Stay till the end, because the reason behind this quiet happiness has not fully revealed itself yet. Meanwhile, your soulmate has been trying to understand why today feels different. They cannot fully explain it even to themselves. They simply notice that the weight they carried for so long no longer feels as heavy. The questions that once filled every quiet hour suddenly seem less important. Hope has started speaking louder than doubt, and they cannot ignore it anymore. They smiled without planning to. They paused in the middle of an ordinary moment and felt grateful without knowing exactly why. Then emotion rose so naturally that tears followed not from sadness, but from relief. It felt as though their heart finally believed that what it had been waiting for was no longer drifting farther away. Here is the beautiful part that almost no one expects. The change did not begin with dramatic words. It did not require a perfect moment. It began the instant you unknowingly chose growth instead of fear, kindness instead of bitterness, and quiet trust instead of endless overthinking. Hearts often recognize these changes long before minds can explain them. That is why something important is waiting for you just beyond this chapter. The next piece of this story begins where silence turns into unmistakable understanding, and what your soulmate realizes next will make every moment leading here feel unexpectedly meaningful. There is another layer to this story that has remained hidden until now, and it changes the meaning of everything you have heard so far. The happiness your soulmate felt was only the beginning. What surprised them even more was what happened after the tears faded. Instead of returning to old doubts, an unfamiliar calm remained. They sat quietly, almost wondering why their heart refused to return to its usual questions. It was as though something deep within them had finally whispered, "You don't have to chase what is already finding its way." They couldn't explain where that certainty came from. They only knew it felt real. Isn't it remarkable how the smallest inner change can transform an entire day? One peaceful thought can replace 100 restless ones. One moment of genuine hope can brighten memories that once felt heavy. Your soulmate began noticing little things they had overlooked for so long. A familiar song suddenly carried a different meaning. A quiet evening felt comforting instead of lonely. Even the ordinary rhythm of the day seemed to carry a gentle reminder that life was preparing something instead of withholding it. Don't skip, because the reason these simple moments matter is about to become clearer than ever. While they were reflecting on these unexpected emotions, another realization quietly unfolded. They understood that they had spent far too much time believing that love had to arrive through noise, dramatic signs, or perfect timing. But now they were discovering something completely different. The deepest connections often grow in silence. They strengthen while no one is watching. They mature while life appears completely ordinary. That realization alone brought another wave of gratitude. It wasn't excitement that filled their heart this time. It was peace. And sometimes peace is the strongest emotion of all. Without even knowing your name in that moment, they found themselves appreciating the person you have become. Not an imagined version of you. Not an impossible expectation. The real you, the one who has quietly learned, healed, waited, and continued moving forward even when no applause followed. Somehow their heart recognized that unseen journey. That recognition became the reason their smile lasted longer than they expected. It was no longer just a passing feeling. It had become quiet confidence. Then something even more meaningful happened. Instead of asking, "When will everything happen?" they began asking a different question. How can I become ready for what is already drawing closer? That single shift changed everything. Their focus moved away from impatience and toward preparation. They wanted their heart to be peaceful enough to recognize the right moment when it arrived. They wanted their future to be built on understanding instead of uncertainty. Stay till the end, because the next realization they receive is unlike anything they expected. What they cannot yet see is that your own journey has been creating gentle ripples far beyond your awareness. Every lesson you embraced instead of resisting, every quiet victory no one celebrated, every decision to keep believing in brighter days has been shaping a future conversation that neither of you can fully imagine yet. Those moments were never wasted. They were becoming the foundation of something steady, something sincere, something that does not need to rush because it is being built with care. And just as your soulmate begins to understand why happiness arrived so unexpectedly, one final piece quietly starts falling into place. It is a discovery so personal that it makes them pause completely. The next moment will not be about coincidence. It will be about recognition, and once they understand what their heart has been trying to tell them all along, nothing will feel quite the same again. Just when everything seemed ready to settle into quiet peace, another unexpected moment gently unfolded, and this was the one your soulmate will remember for a very long time. It did not arrive with loud excitement or dramatic surprises. It came through a simple pause, the kind of pause that makes a person stop whatever they are doing because their heart suddenly feels full. They looked around at an ordinary day, yet nothing felt ordinary anymore. For the first time in what seemed like forever, they realized they were no longer carrying the same emotional weight. Something inside had finally become lighter, and they could not ignore it. Have you ever noticed how certain answers never arrive through endless searching? They appear only after the heart becomes quiet enough to receive them. That is exactly what happened. Your soulmate stopped trying to force every missing piece into place. Instead, they allowed themselves to breathe, to trust the process unfolding one step at a time. In that calm, an unmistakable realization gently surfaced. The happiness they were feeling had not appeared out of nowhere. It had been growing quietly for much longer than they understood. Every unseen change in your own journey had somehow echoed into theirs, like gentle waves reaching a distant shore without making a sound. Don't skip, because this next realization is the one that changed the way they now see you, even without fully understanding why. For so long, they believed strength meant never slowing down, never showing emotion, never admitting that someone could quietly touch their heart from afar. But today that belief began to disappear. They discovered that real strength is allowing hope to return after believing it was gone. Real strength is smiling without needing every answer. Real strength is recognizing that some connections are built through patience rather than urgency. As this understanding settled within them, tears returned once more, but these were softer, warmer, almost filled with gratitude. They were not crying because something was missing. They were crying because they finally understood that something beautiful had already begun. Meanwhile, you may still wonder whether your quiet efforts have truly mattered. Perhaps you've questioned whether becoming calmer, kinder, or more patient could ever make a difference beyond your own life. Yet every moment of quiet growth has been creating a future neither of you could fully imagine. Your soulmate is responding not to words they have heard, but to the person you are steadily becoming. Hearts often recognize authenticity long before circumstances reveal it. Then another gentle surprise found them. A memory appeared without warning. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't overwhelming. It simply carried an unusual feeling of familiarity, as though their heart was reminding them that meaningful things often arrive gradually. They sat with that feeling instead of rushing past it. The more they listened, the clearer it became. They no longer wanted to live from uncertainty. They wanted to move forward with openness, gratitude, and quiet expectation. That decision alone filled them with a happiness they had not experienced in a very long time. Stay till the end, because something important is still waiting just beyond this moment. What your soulmate is beginning to notice now isn't just an emotional change. Small details around them are starting to connect in ways they never expected. Tiny moments that once seemed unrelated are beginning to form one meaningful picture. They don't have every answer yet, but their heart is gently leading them toward one unmistakable truth. And when the next piece quietly falls into place, they will finally understand why today feels so different from every day that came before, because the reason behind their joyful tears is about to become even more personal than they ever imagined. A quiet shift is happening even now, and it is so gentle that most people would walk past it without ever realizing its importance. Your soulmate almost did. They almost returned to their routine, convincing themselves that these unexpected emotions would fade like every passing feeling before them. But this time was different. The peace remained. The smile returned again and again without effort. And with every passing hour, one beautiful thought became impossible to ignore: something inside me has changed forever. They didn't rush to explain it. They simply allowed themselves to sit with that feeling. Sometimes the heart understands long before the mind finds the right words. Sometimes the deepest truths arrive without announcing themselves. Your soulmate discovered that today. Instead of searching for reasons to doubt, they found themselves searching for reasons to be thankful. That alone surprised them more than anything else. Don't skip, because the next realization quietly answered a question they had been carrying for much longer than they admitted. For the first time, they stopped asking whether the right connection could truly exist. Instead, they began asking whether they were becoming the kind of person who could fully receive it. That single question changed the direction of their thoughts. It wasn't about waiting anymore. It wasn't about chasing what seemed distant. It became about growing with intention, appreciating every lesson, and trusting that meaningful things often arrive after quiet preparation rather than hurried expectation. As this understanding settled into their heart, another memory gently surfaced. They thought about every disappointment that once convinced them to close their heart. Every unanswered question. Every season that seemed to stretch longer than expected. Yet instead of feeling sadness, they felt gratitude. Those experiences had not hardened them. They had shaped them. They had taught them patience, compassion, and the quiet strength to recognize something genuine when it finally appeared. At that very moment, your unseen journey became even more meaningful to them. Though they still cannot fully explain why, they feel connected to someone whose heart has also been growing through unseen seasons. They don't picture perfection. They don't imagine an impossible story. They simply feel an unmistakable sense that somewhere, another heart has been choosing hope over discouragement, kindness over resentment, and steady faith over endless worry. That realization fills them with a happiness so sincere that another quiet smile appears before they even notice it. Stay till the end, because what happens next is not about dramatic surprises. It is about recognition. Recognition has a beautiful way of arriving when both hearts become ready to notice what has always been quietly unfolding. Then something wonderfully unexpected happens. Your soulmate begins paying attention to moments they would normally dismiss. A conversation that lingers in their thoughts. A familiar place that suddenly feels comforting. A peaceful evening that carries an unusual sense of expectation. None of these moments demand attention on their own. Yet together they create the feeling that life is gently arranging pieces into a picture they are only beginning to understand. And then comes the realization that brings fresh tears to their eyes, not because of overwhelming emotion, but because of peaceful certainty. They understand that your greatest gift was never a single action. It was the quiet transformation you allowed within yourself. You finally stopped trying to become who everyone else expected you to be. You began embracing the person you were always meant to become. That silent decision reached farther than you know, touching a heart that had been waiting to believe again. Now your soulmate carries one beautiful expectation they cannot shake. They feel that the next chapter is closer than it has ever been, not because life suddenly changed overnight, but because both journeys have quietly been moving toward the same horizon all along. And the moment that is about to unfold will reveal why this day became the one they will always remember with tears of joy, because the story is only now approaching its most meaningful turn. The horizon is beginning to brighten in a way neither of you could have predicted, and your soulmate can feel it without fully understanding why. There is no loud announcement. No dramatic interruption. Just a quiet certainty growing stronger with every passing moment. It is the kind of certainty that settles gently into the heart and refuses to leave. They pause more often now. They smile for reasons they cannot explain. They find themselves looking toward tomorrow with a hope that feels completely new. There is something beautiful about this stage of the journey. Nothing is being forced. Nothing feels rushed. Instead, every piece is finding its natural place, almost like a melody that has been quietly building in the background until, at last, every note begins to make sense. Your soulmate is discovering that happiness is not always created by receiving something new. Sometimes it is created by finally recognizing what has been growing all along. Don't skip, because the quiet answer they have been searching for is closer than ever. They begin to reflect on the version of themselves that existed not long ago. The person who questioned every delay. The person who wondered whether meaningful connections were only meant for other people. Looking back, they almost cannot recognize that version anymore. The fear has not disappeared because someone gave them perfect answers. It has faded because hope has slowly become stronger than uncertainty. Then one simple realization changes everything. They understand that the reason their heart feels so full today is not because of a single event. It is because somewhere along the way, you finally chose yourself in the healthiest possible way. You finally released the need to chase what was never meant to be forced. You finally allowed peace to become more important than proving your worth. You finally trusted that becoming your truest self was more valuable than trying to earn someone's attention. That is what reached them. Not through words. Not through distance. But through the quiet transformation of your spirit. Stay till the end, because this is where the title of this story finds its deepest meaning. Your soulmate's joyful tears were never about one dramatic moment. They were about recognizing, even without fully realizing it, that the person connected to their future had begun walking with greater confidence, greater kindness, and greater peace. They felt that change before they could explain it. It was as though their own heart whispered, "The waiting has not been empty. Something beautiful has been growing in silence." As that thought settled within them, gratitude overflowed once again. They closed their eyes for a brief moment and silently hoped that wherever you were smiling too. They hoped you were discovering the same peace that had unexpectedly found them. They hoped your days were becoming lighter, your heart stronger, and your path clearer with each new sunrise. And although neither of you can see the entire picture yet, one truth has become impossible to ignore. Two separate journeys are no longer moving without purpose. They are slowly, steadily, and naturally drawing closer to the same destination, not through pressure, but through growth, not through urgency, but through quiet readiness. So if today has felt different, if your heart has sensed a gentle calm that you could not explain, perhaps it is because this story is no longer about waiting for life to begin. It is about recognizing that the most meaningful chapter has already started, one peaceful step at a time. And somewhere, at this very moment, your soulmate is still carrying that quiet smile, grateful beyond words because the person they were always meant to appreciate finally chose the path that led both hearts toward a brighter tomorrow.